Hello and welcome at Book Lovers Companion. My name is Edith and no chattering teacup, no CEO. But although we do not have our CEO here, we do have someone here who knows more than a little bit, I suppose, about executive management and is now an author, thriller author, Blake Rudman. Hello, Blake, and welcome at Book Lovers Companion.
Hello, Edith. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you on. And like I said in my introduction, from executive management to author, how did that happen?
Well, I've always wanted or desired to write full time, but when I was younger, I got a bit confounded because of the opportunity to actually survive on a writer's income. So I took all of my notes, I put them away, and through the years, I managed to scribble down and outline a number of different ideas and novels that I wanted to work on when I got to the point within a financial status where I could actually retire from work and go full blown into writing. So I focused heavy on work, and when I got to that point, then I went straight into writing.
Now I'm envious. So you went into full mode author because you could
Yes.
afford it. And I've read that you have published so far 5 novels and all of them in the same year. Did I get that right?
Yes, I've published 5 novels. There's another 7 that are coming out, and the first 5 were published in the same year because although they were written around different times, were edited in the 2 years leading up to them being published, and a lot of that has to do with COVID happening. So during COVID, the process uh, uh, got halted just a bit, and so they just decided to release them all during the same year, last year, same
Hmm.
period.
Hmm.
But they all took much different times. Many of them had been started 5 or 6 years previous, some of them 8 years previous. It just so happens that the final touches for all of them happened within the 2-year stretch during COVID. That's really when the editing process got heavy, just because there was so much opportunity.
Mm. And Hellbound Books, your publisher, is it an indie publisher?
Yes, they're based in Texas, in Houston, and they do all sorts of. They focus on thrillers, horror, um, psychological thrillers, basically, and obviously they have a specialty noir, but they do indie. They take on. They have a collection of writers that have obviously been pretty prolific in their tenure, and they've at times taken on some writers that are up and coming. And with me, it was up and coming, and but after going through the process of reading all the books and going through that, they felt that it would be a good opportunity for them as a different genre, but to help promote and advance their label as well.
Mm. And what I've gathered when I looked at your books, the ones that are published now, the 5 that are published now, the Red Line was the one that came out in August 2023. And I read into it a bit, I have to say, only. Shame on me, I know. But what can you tell us about this book especially? Because it has an interesting plot, which means we have 2 people in different countries. That's how it started, and it all comes together somehow. What can you tell us about this book of yours, Red Line?
So Um, I had the ideas for Redline, um, in 2017. There's a big movie that had come out, and during the movie, I was there was it was obviously a packed crowd, and many theaters were packed with the movie coming out, and I thought to myself, wow, what better way if a theater was packed than a terrorist organization, if they're going to make a play on really going around the world, since the movie came out all around the world at the same time, on getting the attention of whom they're going after. But then it came to me that although that would be sufficient for a one-time attack, I really believe that the way that the world is progressing, technologically based, and more methodical, structurally, that it would make more sense if they got you from where you're most comfortable, which would be your home. So I wrote a book about, without getting into too much, but I wrote a book about a deflection being that that there's a terrorist attack at all of the national and international theaters on the same day of the opening of the premiere of a massive giant movie, but actually the real terrorist attack is taking home when you decide you're not going to leave the house anymore, because they have infiltrated the pixelated they've infiltrated all of the pixelations and the security code that makes TV, so they actually get you through the streaming services and the pixelations as you're watching. So as you're watching TV with your family, thinking that you're safe in your own home, through the streaming and through what they've actually confounded in the pixelations, they're turning you into terrorists at home without you knowing.
That's an absolutely scary thought.
They're they're hypnotizing you through the pixelations. And so, as I said, without getting into too much, it you don't even know what's happening. And it's by advanced advanced weaponry. Obviously, there's code written in, and so many people end up becoming these terrorists, and they can't figure out why. There's so much going on, and what the deal is, and it's happening at home, family struggles, all sorts of stuff. They're accomplishing their goal. And but that's just one part of it. So it's international based, because the it happens internationally, and they have to get to the bottom of it.
So what you are saying is Alexa and all the other devices are just there to turn us into terrorists.
So what I'm saying is
Just-
that Alexa and all the other devices could be a deflection for something else that's turning you into a terrorist,
Hmm.
but they seem like they're the good guy.
Yeah, true. Isn't it a scary thought? I mean, all this discussion about AI. Um, what is your take on this before we dive further into your books?
So if the unless you build yourself in this life a solid testimony, and you're firm on solid ground, that then AI, and related to social media, anything that's related to a technological platform that, if went out, wouldn't really affect your life, shouldn't affect your life when it's in existence. But if you are codependent on those type of vessels, that when something does happen, it will feel like your world fell apart. So for me, I'm not dependent on any of them. I so they don't really wage a significant appearance in my life. So I feel like I have a better understanding of them than most, just
Mm.
because I look at them as a spectator.
Hmm. Interesting. And can they be a useful tool, and do we need to put them on a leash?
I think that we've seen through 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 not only elections but through the judicial system, through schooling, through the youth, of what kind of effect it could have positively and negatively. Have the positive aspect of being able to accomplish a task at a rapid pace. You're able to stay in touch with family. You're able to, if linked properly to all your devices, basically get a have a computer at your disposal everywhere you are that can give you information in real time of what's occurring in the world. But the other flip side to that is always the opposition, of which is that information you're getting accurate?
Mhm.
Is the platform affecting your kids and the youth in school? Is it causing harassment or bullying to occur? Do you have private space? Do you ever get to enjoy building and developing your relationship with your family, yourself, whatever deity you may be engaged with, without everybody knowing what's going on in your life? So I believe that if you're looking for privacy, it's a little deterrent to that. If you're looking for quick answers right away, it could be helpful, but I see it for myself as a little bit of a problem, because I come from the time where if you were interested in really developing and knowing something outside the four walls of which you generally live in, then you would research it. And by researching it, you would actually start to develop more information than you could ever imagine, with your eye singular to the glory of that research. Whereas of now, um, so quick that it can be forgotten just as fast as it's retrieved.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. And coming back to your book, which you now mentioned and which you explained or introduced our audience a bit to, um, why did you, or also the other books of yours, they are um, noir thrillers. Why did you choose this genre, or did the genre choose you?
Um, so all the books are different. The genres are similar in in a thrilling aspect, but some are dystopian, some are psychological thrillers, some are, I would say, a little bit more on the just basic. I've done a couple that are just more dramatic sense, modern drama, not as much dystopian, but still giving off an illusion of modern times were set in. I would say that the genre and the concepts found me. I don't believe
Mhm.
that I was looking for them. I believe that through experience, through traveling, and through religion, through every aspect of life, I you seem to take a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and then the ideas start to flow, and then you have to outline them. And once you outline them, sometimes you have great concepts that you think will
Mm.
do well. They end up not doing anything, and then sometimes you have concepts that you are hazy on that end up being your best work. So it's
Mm.
just it's a long suffering process.
Oh, I can imagine that. And the characters for your book, especially now that we spoke again of Red Line, how did they find you? Because, like I said before, it starts in two different countries, countries that couldn't be more different on so many levels than the ones that you mention in the book, it's Iran and it's the
Yes.
United States. And we have a police officer in the United States as a character in your book, and we have a linguistic professor from a university or the University of Tehran in Iran, and they play a major part. How did they find you?
Um, so the concepts of the actual character definition came, the protagonist being somebody that has had a bit of a plight in his life. I figured that it's always good to have a protagonist that's actually experienced this world. There's going to be ups and downs, but at the end of the day, he's always singular to attaining and doing the right. And then as far as going overseas in Iran, I the premonitions that I've been getting as far as writing in the last 5 or 6 years have been significantly internationally based.
Mhm.
Although there seems to be a great amount going over in overseas in the Middle East, in Tehran and Israel, and and then even China. So and India. So I've decided in novels to not just domestically focus on American characters, but to actually engage in Indian in Middle Eastern and to bring it all together. And so when you start getting into some of the other books like Kutri, you'll see that that the main female is Indian
Mhm.
from a small town, Punaji, in India, and you'll start noticing that through the other novels that I've taken away your domestic aspect that so many people get focused on, and have kind of gone out of that element a bit. It took a lot of research. I wasn't exactly that too familiar with it, but it seemed to work.
Mm. I mean, that's wonderful because these days so many authors tend to shy away from writing characters which are not the same, gender, sex as they are, or the same nationality as they are. Did you feel brave doing so, or did you not even think about it? Like you said, it takes a lot of research to get it right, but you didn't shy away from doing so.
So I didn't want to do anything that has so everything's been done. So the best of the best have come. My influences have come and gone. Anywhere from Orwell to Steinbeck to, I mean, there I could go down the list. Nietzsche, um, Dostoevsky, all of them have written way better than I could ever possibly engage in. However, um, we live in different times now, and it seems that the writing has gotten a bit, that what I've read, kind of stagnant, with it just being domesticated and without truly going out of the box and being exciting. You almost know how it's going to end. Now, some of that writing gets turned into TV sitcoms and movies, and then they add elements and elements and elements of shows and series onto it, so it starts to change a bit. But I wanted to engage in what really goes on, and what really goes on is that many people have moved here from other countries,
Mhm.
and there's many interracial marriages, and it's not the same as it was 20 years ago, and there's a lot of conflict goes on internally within a family, and that goes on externally within the world. And I wanted to not focus just on at standards that everybody seems to think. And I also didn't want to teach in subject matter because it's what everybody does. So I didn't want to just put things in there just because it fills in the voids of what everybody's looking for. Could really I really wasn't that concerned about any of that. I went with the way that I was guided. My spirit guided me,
Mm,
and it got me towards that.
mm.
So I didn't really give it too much thought.
Yeah, but you like you said, you didn't just check the boxes because it's also something a lot of authors, maybe not a lot of authors, but that's what they do. Like you mentioned in TV shows and films, they just have to check the boxes. Yeah, got that, got that, got that, and that's it. And yeah, we did
Before
it.
you know it, if you're checking boxes, you'll be checking more boxes and more
Yeah,
boxes and more boxes, and then it just becomes boring,
yeah,
and it's not progressive, and
yeah.
I don't live like that.
Mm. And I think, I mean, I'm not from Iran, and I had a colleague. She's from Iran, and I think your character in your book is well done because
Thank you.
because she's also someone, my colleague, she studied math and she's a teacher and she came here quite some time ago. And she came here because, she wanted to experience the freedom of living in Europe and living in the West. And I also get that from your character that you wrote in your book as well. So I'd say well done as far as character
Thank you.
development is concerned. And what about your other character? You said you were looking for a character who has experienced uh bad times, not so bad that he became or becomes a cliche, which is always
Yeah.
also a danger, I think, when people write in this kind of genre, that when they write police officers or private investigators, or at least it's my
So
impression
what?
as a reader.
Um, Yeah, immediately I flipped the shay in the beginning. So what could have been diagnosed immediately as, a cop or somebody in the Secret Service or somebody national security, and that person's going to take down all the bad guys. Um, I with either the support, of a family, whatever it is, I flipped it immediately where there was an internal struggle with him, and that happens opening night of the attack. Um, Without giving it away, he's everything that he's ever known in his life, every direction that he's ever has taken away from him in a moment, and so we're thinking about, is this going to be cliche at all? Now you're thinking about you know what's next for this guy. I mean, this is pretty intense. And he starts to rebuild himself. And as he's rebuilding himself, mentally where it really starts.
Mm, mm,
So I didn't want to do anything too fanciful and he comes home to his loving wife and his kids and they all go celebrate. There's no reward for him. Um, this is a self journey of doing what he feels is necessary, and and I think that it was important in going on that way. You have to have protagonists, you have to have character definitions, and it's hard at times because you get lost in what could be mundane. So try to flip that immediately.
mm. And since you said at the beginning, when I asked you how it happened that you came from executive management to becoming an author, and you said you started writing in notebooks and so on, and you had this, I suppose one could say, this need to write down what was in your head and your ideas. And uh, coming from there, how would you describe your journey from writing in notebooks to becoming a full-time author? What did change? How did your process change?
Mm. I would say I'm 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 organized when it comes to making sure that thoughts are are clear, written down, and that way you can really build off of them. But I thought in the beginning that I could take thoughts or concepts and just kind of extrapolate on that into full-fledged books. What I learned is that just like in corporate America, or in any business really, it's a little by line. Every day you're learning something, and you want to take the knowledge that you're learning and effectively put it into your daily work and the future, so you could grow something out. So when I first started writing, wasn't really prepared. I knew how to write and I knew exactly the concepts I had to write, but I couldn't seem to piece them all together. And then, you know, about a year and a half afterwards, I started learning new steps of outlining, new steps of putting it all together. I used all the experience I had in the business world in as terms of organization, getting early, using your time wisely, and then it just became effective. I was able to stream into one. Now I could not do both at the same time. I tried doing that, at times, and it's hard because it's really the lack of sleep could be detrimental at times. You really want to brain rest. You get better ideas, and
Mhm.
you flow smoother. But at the same time, the best you can do. So that's been the transition. I'm no longer in that other world at all. I would never go back into that. So it does nothing for me. So I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily into our thriller world either. I'm just in a world where I try to expound thoughts and concepts that I have and put them on paper, and hopefully somebody that to delve a little deeper into their imagination can pick up one of the books and have enjoy reading in a lesson a week. So that's really where I am as far as the writing goes.
Mm. And do you see yourself as going on in the thriller genre? Although you said there are different subgenres where books are concerned. So, uh, do you see yourself in the future in a completely different genre? Maybe, or just trying your
So
hand at a
the
different one?
the publishing house, and Hellbound Books, and the sure James Longmore, he's been excellent. So any new concepts that I consider going into, he's supportive, and we'll go through an outline of where we want to go. What I'm thinking. Um, I currently would say that I'm going to branch out a little bit in towards a spiritual dystopian. I'm currently working on a book, which is a 3-part book on on a modern day um, Job, like from
Mhm.
the Bible.
Yeah, Old
And so
Testament. Yeah, okay.
obviously it's a lot of material, and it's resurrection and suffering and everything you could think about, and it's going to be it's a 3 series book. So that's totally different than anything I've done. I've never done anything that's religious, spiritually based,
Mhm.
and that's not completely. So that I'm working on right now. It'll be finished probably within the next 6 to 9 months.
Hmm. But you said it's 3 parts, or yeah.
So yeah, three different stories. They all come together. It's a series,
Hmm. And
and I've
that
never done series before. They were
mm,
just one-offs. This will be different.
mm, but coming from your background, I mean, it seems to me that it might be easier for you to pull it off? Because I imagine that if you have a 3-part series, it takes a lot of planning, and you seem to be the
So I
person who
planned,
can do that.
yeah, I probably spent about 7 months just on the outline. So, and then probably 2 years just on the concept. So before anything ever even got touched. So, I'd say it's pretty planned out, but just like anything else, writing is one of those things where you go in thinking you're going to tell a story about a zebra and you end up telling a story about a big red truck. So it's just never what you think. You really it really goes with how engaged you are, where you're being led, your capacity at the time of what your desire is for that material. If you run out of material and then maybe you have an idea for something else, you can say so. But this one has stayed true to form. So it will stay true to the outline pretty precisely
Mhm. And
because it's delicate to leave.
yeah, and you said there's a lot of work invested already before you even started to write. And do
Years. Yeah.
yeah, do you enjoy this kind of preparation? And do you know when you are ready? Because sometimes authors say there is this danger of me falling into the rabbit hole of research because I get so lost because it's so fascinating. I find out tidbits of information and I go this way and they lead me that way. And sometimes I have this, I might uh, tell myself, okay, now stop it. Otherwise, the book gets never written.
Um, so as far as enjoying the process of it, as I said, it can be challenging, a little bit suffering. Yes, there's definite moments of of self-torture, trying to get through. But I would say, as far as the research is concerned, um, you can get caught up in a whirlwind of research, or you can grasp what you believe are be the most thoughts and then expound upon them. And I believe that works best. You're not, I'm not trying to teach hieroglyphics to a bunch of PhD students that are learning to take that over. I'm trying to capture a mass audience with a concept that I believe should edify them. And if they want to dig deeper afterwards within themselves, just what reading should do, and explore their own neuroses, then this gives them an avenue to do it. As far as digging too deep in research, that can happen. I don't find it necessary. I think that as long as you have enough material that clearly draws out the point of what you're getting at, that works.
Historic crime fiction authors might disagree there.
Probably. It wouldn't be the first.
Understandably, because they're sticklers for the detail, most of them.
Probably more detailed at times than I am, but may not have lived as many places and had the refinement of some of the stuff I've had. So sometimes the details actually come more naturally without having to necessarily, all my time in the research.
Mm, mm. And how would you describe after writing your editing process?
Um, That goes through that probably takes about 6 months. It's better to finish, sections and then go through them, and then gauge yourself for the next sections. As far as the editing process, sometimes the book can be finished and the editing takes twice as long
Mm,
because you add upon. And so I would say that the editing process is way more stressful for me than the actual,
mm,
writing process.
mm. And my question would also be, now that we have spoken about ideas and characters and so on, how difficult do you find, for example, writing dialogue? Because some authors say they find it quite easy, some find it quite hard. They are better with description. What about you?
I enjoy dialogue and writing it. I guess everything presents its challenges at some time, but, um, I don't seem to find any, I don't find many challenges in writing dialogue. I
Mm-hmm.
think it flows well.
Mm. And is it easy for you to set the scene, for example, to get it right? Because that's the other thing authors sometimes feel they have trouble with. They are good with dialogue then, but they have trouble setting the scene, making it vivid for the reader, so to speak.
So that can be a challenge at times, especially if it's dystopian,
Mm,
because you're setting it so far in the future
mm,
that you really are trying to paint a picture of something that nobody's seen before. So that can present some opportunities, and sometimes you write, you do 5, 6 takes at it until you get it right. So yes, that's a little bit more challenging than the
mm,
than the dialogue.
mm. Do you think that both uh, both parts are equally important or make a novel equally interesting? I mean, sometimes there's the question: is it about the plot? Is it about the characters? What is your take? Because, for example, for me as a reader, okay, plot is important, characters can be important, both when they come together quite nicely, it's wonderful, but they don't necessarily have to. You can have characters which you feel, eh, maybe not, but the plot is good, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So I agree with that. Sometimes sometimes the characters you may as you're reading or as I'm writing, you may think that you could have written the character better, or you could actually do something better than the characters doing it, or you would have gone a different direction. But the overall plot, the overall storyline fits well into what you would want to read. So I would say that that the storyline, and I would say that the main characters are significantly, I mean, they go well together. I would say that if you miss it on one main character, but the plot and storyline are that, and I think that that can be worked around more so than if the plot and storyline aren't that good, but the characters are good. Want to have a good story.
Mm. And how much influence have your characters on your writing? Meaning, you probably you know what I
Not
mean.
really. Yeah, I don't. So I try not to incorporate any true experience that I've had myself. I've found that when you start writing anything that you've experienced or even autobiographical, it seems to be not really, if I was to write an account of my life, which I think that it could be 350 pages, after I got past page 3, it'd probably be over. So, so, I I don't really try to incorporate as much from my experiences, as they've been completely different than anything I've written. I try to go more or less with what I believe the direction that our current environment is going in.
Mm,
Not really my
mhm. And do they start to have a life of their own? Because that's something one author said. He always thought it a little bit ridiculous when authors said, "Ah, yes," and then the character looked over my shoulder and he or she said, "Oh no, what you have written there, that's not me. You have to change that." Did you experience something like that?
Yes, many times you're tired, and or you've written too much, and now you're not gaining the full understanding of the character and and how they would actually respond, and you have to stop and redo it. So yes, many times that's happened.
Oh, good to know. And how do you, I mean, we spoke about settings and scenes and so on. How would you describe your, how shall I put it? What is in your head and what you put on paper? Because I often feel that when it's in my head, like a sort of short sequence, like in a film and so on, I know perfectly well what I'm writing, and then it has this certain flow when I write. And when you read this passage, you realize, oh yeah, that was the moment when the author also wasn't struggling with the words.
Um, so thoughts that I have in my head, I'll make notes on them. And then once I have notes on them, I go through them all. And if I'm able to capture it in an outline that I feel has a beginning, an arch, an ending, and it
Mhm,
has all the accoutrement throughout to actually make a good story, then I know I can work with it.
mhm.
If I know that it's just a good idea, but it doesn't really have it's not going to yield the kind of fruit I'm looking for, then I'll scratch it. Or maybe one day it'll be a short story.
Ah, okay. Well, that's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, planning is important, especially now what you're preparing now. But are you the kind of writer that if you have an idea, change a lot of your book? If you feel that the idea in that moment is the right thing to follow?
I wouldn't change it immediately. If I had an idea that I thought and the book needed to change completely, I would probably put it down for a day, and then I'd come back to it to really see if that's necessary or if there's some tweaks that could be made moving forward. But I could you could get 100 pages deep into a book and then realize that you want to change it this direction, but then you could also want to change it 15 other directions afterwards. I I try to outline, and then the outline I'll change a number of times
Mm.
before the
Mhm.
actual words, the pen hits the paper. But once that actually happens, then then I try to stick with it.
Mm. Okay. I see, I see. Okay. And what would you say is your advice for any other author out there or coming author out there?
If you're looking to there's many people that wanna write a book about themselves, about their lives, I would say scratch that immediately. I would say that you first wanna start off writing stories or experiences that you think are intriguing. I would say that outlining your ideas is a good way to go. It keeps you, centered instead of getting too lost. I would say don't think about a page count or how long it's going to take. I would just outline and make sure you have the right characters. Make sure your arch works. You know that there's the conflict, the resolution, everything goes together
Mhm.
well. That you feel goes and then once you have that, I would go somewhere where you turn your phone off. I'd go somewhere where there's not a lot of ambient noise, you know, unless it's by the water or in a mountain, but not somewhere where you're, um, you know, listening to a bunch of cars drive by and all of that. You really want to stay focused with with the correct atmosphere get your story, and then just start writing and see what happens.
What you mentioned now, it's interesting. A lot of authors really want to write about themselves.
Yes.
Really?
I believe that a lot of people incorporate a lot of their own experiences in their writing, and then I believe that
Mm,
you that a lot of newer writers like have experienced so much that they want to tell that story, and that is with
mm,
them incorporating themselves as the main character.
mm. They must lead intriguing lives because I, for one, are I'm the most boring person one can imagine. So
And there's some writers that are not that are have had led amazing lives.
yeah,
Hemingway.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, he did so much, and he was able to put a lot of himself in his writing and his experiences. But I mean, not everybody has run with the bulls. So
Yeah.
really, you really want to just kind of I try to gauge my writing around what I believe readers want to read, not
Mm,
necessarily exactly what I want to get. I want to see what readers are interested in reading. I then take the concepts and ideas that I think are important. I then try to mesh them together. If you go full immersed in giving something new to somebody who's not really thinking about that, then you'll lose them. So I slowly try to build in new concepts into their regular lives. And that way it's a little at a time and they can devour it at a pace that works for them. And then as more books come out, there'll be more emphasis on a little another level and of taking concepts and ideas that they
mm,
wouldn't have thought of and slowly giving it to them. I never hit them with craziness, but there are scenes within the books that are intense. But the concepts are concepts that if you really sit down and think about it, they make sense. They're just
mm,
you just don't think about them all the time.
mm. You said what they want to read, also what you would like to read yourself.
What they to read mingled with my concepts, and so I mingle some of my ideas I think are important into what I believe that societally based reading, what my audience would enjoy reading, but I give them a spin on it. I don't if I'm doing a psychological thriller, I don't want to throw something at them that's going to completely confound them.
Mm,
So I'll take a concept that I know that they're used to, but I'll throw a lot of new concepts in it, but at a pace that they can handle. As far as my own reading is concerned, um, I would that I'm into historical fiction. I like, J. Archer. Um, as far as like fictional is concerned, I would say, but I'm more into reading history and anything related to obviously the beginning the anything that dates back to the meridian of time, thousands of years. I really like to delve into that. I'm not as much into fantasy and sci-fi anymore because I
mm,
focus on the writing of that. So with myself, I focus on things that could help me with the research
mm. Thousands of years old. So Europe would be the place for you.
for the Middle East.
All that, exactly.
Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, come to Vienna, visit the Roman sites and so on, you know.
Yeah.
And like you elaborate a little bit please on your plans for the next books. You said a little bit about that, but what else can we can we expect from you?
So I have there's some spiritual dystopian novels that'll be coming out. There's a couple psychological thrillers that'll come out that are that that are a little bit. They're definitely edgy. I wrote a book called Dark Beauty that was about two twin sisters that unfortunately have a terrible accident from an ex-boyfriend, a jealous ex-boyfriend, and they end up becoming serial killers. At least
Hmm.
one of them becomes a serial killer while the other one's trying to save her sister. So I'm really trying to I take concepts like The Bachelor or shows or things, and I'm trying to take them to the next level. So I would say that any of the spiritual books that I'll be writing will be next level. The dystopian ones are not necessarily going to be what we're used to in dystopian. I'm going to mingle it with current affairs uh, and and laws and rules that I believe or would make for interesting reads. And I'd say that I'm gonna tone it down probably a little bit on the just the they're going to be more psychological and I wouldn't say that there maybe one day I'll write a comedy. I maybe I should do that, but I'd say that they're if you're looking for a dark heavy read that can open your mind and you may not sleep for a couple of days, and I would say that my next book's coming out will do that for you.
Okay, then I shall read them during my holidays.
Yes, they're good holiday books.
Splendid. Blake, is there anything else you would like our listeners to know?
Um, if you were to read the first, or at this point, what was mentioned by Edith as Red Line, I would say that Red Line would be the first one that I'd read. And after Red Line, if you're looking for more psychological thriller, if you're looking for something more modern based, if you're a female that enjoys reading psychological thrillers, I would go with Dark Beauty after that, and then kind of set yourself up. You're going to get two different styles, two different genres, and I think that they'll appeal to you both. Um, and as far as that's concerned, I'm just happy to be able to have the opportunity to write. To when it's presents itself, obviously, and it's nice to be here. To be able to to get some of this inner dialogue out. So I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for being here on the show. We absolutely appreciate it. And I will join you again shortly in the green room, so don't go away.
Sounds good.
Dear listeners, we hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did, and we'll meet again on our channel. Until next time.